Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Village of Red Oak, the village with heart and with intention and with compassion. And I'm the mayor of the village, Ed Blondell, and with me in the audience is my deputy mayor, Brent Kowalczyk. Welcome, welcome. Brent, I don't know if you want to come up and say a few things now too, or you good? Craig, thanks for bringing your group over. And we look forward to this. We were at WKZE the other night and or the other day, trying to introduce it to our public. I'm not sure who's here from the public versus the group, but welcome anyway. And let's see, I guess most of you are group from the Memoir Group. Is it public? I usually do my informal survey to see who's here. And but we have a nice crowd. And we have from our local shops, we have Taste Buds gave us some food at a discount rate, which is great, and Miyomai Pie Shop as well. So thanks to them. And WKZE. Myself, I'd like to thank the Oncology Support Group only because I have a sister who's very ill with cancer, and I've discovered what they do for us. And with that, it's very personal. I've reached out to that group, and they've helped me get through what we're going through. And I think I would like to have our village here, the same support exists for other folks out there, and I'd like you folks to bring that to our village, and we have it televised tonight. So with that, I'll introduce Craig, and we'll start from there. Thank you very much.
This is an extraordinary group, not just because we write great things, but because we become a family. It really all starts with the Oncology Support Program, which we are lucky enough to have in our group. The individual who made that happen 20 years ago. Oncology Support Program does so much for so many people. People who have cancer and their families. We would not have a home, and we would not exist without an Oncology Support Program. We also would not exist if it wasn't for Abigail Thomas, our mentor, our teacher, our friend, who started this little group as a way of paying back, as a way of thanking the Oncology Support Program for all the help that they gave to her family, and especially her daughter, Catherine, when she was diagnosed and in treatment for triple-negative breast cancer. So Abby decided to offer her services as it were. And this was supposed to be a 5-week workshop. We're now in our 3rd year. Abby often says the work was just too good to stop. And not only that, we all fell in love with each other. Somewhere along the line, Abby started to say, and everybody echoed her feeling, that the work that we were writing needed to be turned into a book. And so, on our own, we made this book, published it in October. I have a stack over there on that table. So anyone who's interested in looking at it or maybe getting one, you're most welcome. But we're not just about the book. The book is wonderful and we're all very proud of it. This group does so much and enriches us all, and by extension, everyone who comes in contact with us. So, I'll be back to read something in a while, but I want to leave you with this little piece that I wrote about my experience in the group. When the Oncology Support Memoir Group began, I had lost my vocal cords to cancer and felt ashamed and afraid, utterly outside the pulse of life. With the encouragement of the group's members, of our mentor, Abigail Thomas, and her 2-page prompts, I began to write about my life, past and present, for the first time. Through this process, I found my new voice and it has transformed me. I am now involved and engaged and will forever be profoundly grateful. So, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Hi. I'm Juliet Harrison. I'm the newest member of the group, having only joined probably late October or early November, and have been totally welcomed into. The first piece I'm going to read two tonight. The first piece is something that I actually wrote probably early October, as it was published in the Mercantile magazine. And those of us who live locally may be familiar with the magazine and their gratitude issue, which they asked me to write a piece for. So this is called Red Hook is a Great Place to Have Cancer. People harbor a lot of preconceived notions about small towns. Some think those who choose to live in them are backwards, insular, closed-minded, and not at all worldly or sophisticated. That small towns are rife with gossip and a lack of privacy. I agree with some of that, although I do believe we are sophisticated and forward-thinking. I will forever be thankful for that gossipy, intrusive, collective mind of my small town community. I have just lived through the hardest year of my life. In last February, my doctor found a large lump on one of my ovaries. 1 month later, after the removal of that ovary, its mate, and all the rest of my reproductive organs, I was told I had ovarian cancer. I would need to undergo 6 treatments of chemotherapy, 1 every 3 weeks. Suddenly, normal life for my husband and me was no longer possible. When we opened ourselves up and we were willing to share, the people of our small community rushed in and embraced us with as much care and support as we needed. I seriously doubt we would have found that if we had lived in a large urban setting. I suspect we would have felt isolated and alone in our months of struggle. I did not hide out in the house with a wig on my head pretending that all was well. I went public with my struggle with cancer. I went to the Saturday farmer's market in my favorite southwestern patterned scarf, devoid of eyebrows and lashes. And what I got in return for my honesty was a community of friends who visited us, comforted us, fed us, laughed with us, and of course cried with us. I found out that I mattered to my community, and that my continued longevity mattered to them. These, as much as all the medical intervention, the poisonous infusions, and side effect remedies, were the tools I used to survive cancer. These offerings by our community were the nutrients of my successful cancer treatment. When I needed company and chemo, Helen came prepared to read to me, or Debbie came with a pack of playing cards, entertained by the stuffed zebra and plastic Smurfs that I brought every time to sit on the infusion machine. When I needed something from the supermarket, usually ice cream, there was Rebecca at my door with sundaes from Holy Cow. When my husband was exhausted from his duties as deputy mayor and the burden of doing everything to care for me in our home life, Kim would knock on the door with a full meal, tailor-made for whatever point I was in my chemo cycle, exquisitely prepared to tempt my ravaged taste buds, and usually enough for leftovers, so we never had to think about cooking the next day. And we ate well, since most of our friends are better cooks than we are. But what I will never forget was the simple chicken broth with wide egg noodles and wilted greens that Helen made several times right after I got home from the hospital and was not yet ready to eat much of anything. That soup really was medicine for my beat-up body and soul. From the moment I started to regain enough energy to go out, I was greeted by overwhelming concern and happiness at J&J's Deli when I returned to my weekly lunches with my dear friend Ronnie. I am so thankful that we live in a place where people know and care about each other. That is really what living in a small town means. When my son was a junior in high school, he lived in Milan, Italy, for the year. When I asked him what he missed most while he was away, he said that he missed living in a place where people knew him and cared about him. That is not some silly platitude, some outdated 1950s Ozzie and Harriet notion. It is the reality of small town life even in 2014. Although it may sound strange, and I wish that my recent life had been different, I am very lucky that Red Hook really was a great place to have cancer.
Valentine's Day. My father always brought my mother the same gifts. A heart-shaped, bow-clad, red satin-covered box of Barasini chocolates and stockings from Cosmos, 9 long and the only color she wore, smoky taupe. One year the chocolates came from Barton's, and my mother threw that heart-shaped box at my father's head. He ducked, but they still argued all night. My mother believed Valentine's Day was a holiday for amateurs. She expected symbols of my father's love all year round. On those endless occasions, he never brought flowers. I'm not sure why, but occasionally he'd show up with something scintillating from my mother's endless collection of lingerie. When he worked at one of his many part-time jobs in Manhattan, he would make a quick stop at one of my mother's preferred department stores. She liked Oppenheim Collins, Arnold Constable, Best & Company, and B. Altman, the middle-of-the-road stores. She never shopped the high-priced luxury stores like Bergdorf Goodman or Von Teller. Impossible. Nor would she ever set foot in what she called the cheap Charlie dumps. S. Klein on the Square, or Mays, or Goodwin's. Now, when the contents of those heart-shaped boxes had been devoured, in the aftermath of Valentine's Day, they came to me. I kept my little drawings, my birthday cards, my little treasures, and the so-called charms I got out of the vending machines in front of the Chinese laundry at St. John's Place. I was obsessed with those nickel machines, and I cherished those oddball miniatures. A white marble dog, tiny plastic binoculars, a metal skull and crossbones pirate ring, a shiny plastic red hot dog on an orange bun. I shook those heart-shaped boxes and liked the chaotic rumbling sound, but I really loved the feel of the red satin. I'd rub it against my cheek. I was still very fond of textiles, damask sheets, thick fluffy towels, and antique patchwork quilts. By the time the love of my life and I celebrated Valentine's Day with champagne and cocaine. In those days, we preferred Paul Roger and the pharmaceutically pure. And ever resourceful, I made my own chocolate truffles better than any of the chic chocolatiers. And just like my parents, we argued constantly over everything imaginable. About sex, about money, about food, about art. But we were very much in love. The love of my life loved flowers so much that on Valentine's Day I always went to the 6th Avenue Floral District, and thanks to my father's connections, built my own enormous bouquet for cheap at the wholesaler the New York City Fire Department used for the funerals of their fallen firefighters. When I came home to Park Slope on the subway, my face was obscured behind an amazing array of exotic blooms. No long stem roses for my gal. She wanted kangaroo paws, birds of paradise, and Ming fern. Our 4th floor brownstone walk-up was pretty close to heaven. From our bedroom windows, with their unobstructed view of the skyline, we watched the World Trade Center get built. That apartment was always cold in February, but that never worried us.
Some of the pieces you hear tonight are in this wonderful book, including the one that I'm about to read. It's called Honesty. I can smell that he has moved his bowels. You just know what that smells like, even through the bed coverings. I know that the ambulance will come soon to take him to the hospital for his next radiation treatment. How soon? It's noon, and they are scheduled to arrive at 12:30. If I wait until we get him to the hospital, then they can change him there. I feel like a coward. This is my beautiful son-in-law, Stephen. 10-year-old Beth's amazing dad. Loving husband for 20 years of my dear daughter, Francie. I've watched his strong body while skillfully teaching a karate class to Beth's friends at her 8th birthday party. He's a black belt. I've seen photographs of his handsome face when he was a model in fashion magazines. Seen his imposing figure on TV soap operas. My friends would call when they recognized him on All My Children. He was that beautiful guy in a scene in Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. Now he lies in a hospital bed, in the bedroom he shares with Francie in their beautiful home. He has no ability to move his legs and has lost control of his torso. Catheter and diapers. Since yesterday, he cannot get to the commode, and now he has moved his bowels in his diaper. I've gotten good at changing his catheter from the large bag that's attached to the bed to the one he needs to travel with to the hospital, which I attach to his leg. I am sensitive to what it might be like for him to have me seeing his nakedness and ministering to his needs. If he is embarrassed, he doesn't show it. I am grateful for his kindness. I do my best to hide my reluctance to change him. It's been almost 50 years since I changed my children's diapers. Now the man who has been the son I never had for over 20 years needs me to change his diaper, to wipe him, to clean him. How can I even think of waiting until he gets to the hospital? This is now. This needs to be done, and I'm the one to do it. This is certain to happen again and again as his illness progresses. Then I realize that this is more than a job that needs to be done. It is an act of love, a service that I have been given the opportunity to provide to the man who has loved my daughter, my granddaughter, and me for all these years. When we first met, he told me that you can tell a lot about the woman you love and who she will become by seeing who her mother is. He said, "How lucky I am to be meeting you, because now I know how fine my future wife will be." I'm remembering when he and Francie went on a vacation to Greece a few years after they were married. She came back with rolls of film. Remember rolls of film? They came with scenes of their trip. The highlights of her trip were, here's Steve at the Parthenon, Steve on the beach in Mykonos, Steve at a taverna in Santorini. He was the guy she always dreamed she would marry, and he was the center of her world. Now he's terminally ill, and I'm learning so much about love, about caregiving, and about overcoming my reluctance to do what I never thought I would be called on to do, and to see it as a privilege. I undress him, I change him, wipe and clean him. The ambulance arrives.
I'm Ruth Watera, and I've been attending the support group for the last year. 18 years, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call us, 'cause we can't go. Matrimony keeps the taxman from banging on the door. I've had to retire and it's time to officially close my business. It has supported both Glenn and me since 2002. We have modest needs, love each other, and enjoy being together, but we've never married. We never felt the need until cancer and the tax man joined forces. I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, which has changed our lives. We have rethought lots of things and talked well into many nights about end-of-life issues. It's time to get married. We decided this wedding should be really low-key. Neither of us have family in the area. We aren't religious. Money is tight, so we don't plan to throw a big party or even a small one. We just need to get it done before the end of the year, and we're leaving for a family Christmas in New Hampshire on Monday. In mid-December, when getting our marriage license, the town clerk told us that Judge Parker likes doing weddings. She gave us his phone number. Glenn called him and left a message. No call back. Ditto our second call, but Saturday noontime the phone rang and I answered it. The judge: I understand you want to get married. When did you have in mind? Today? Are you rushing into this? No, we've been together 18 years. Judge: I guess you know what you're doing then. Where? He suggested the Hurley Mountain Inn. I agreed while Glenn in the background visibly cringed. What time? The judge asked. How about now? We dickered a bit over how long it would take to get there. I thought 15 minutes to put on our coats and roll down the hill, but the judge wanted to shower and shave. We settled on 45 minutes. A witness? I said I'd see if a neighbor was available. The judge said, don't bother, we'll get a waitress. Do you know the Hurley Mountain Inn? Most of our generation knows it as the upstate bar in Dustin Hoffman's movie Tootsie. I guess that gives it a certain cachet. When we arrived, Judge Parker was sitting at the bar. The place was virtually empty. It was midday the Saturday before Christmas. There were about a dozen barflies and a couple of tables having lunch. Everyone looked at us expectantly, giving me the distinct feeling that Judge Parker had already told everyone why he was there and what was going to happen. The waitress apologized. She couldn't be our witness. She had to take care of the customers, but she said she'd find someone for us. True to her word, she was back within 5 minutes with a young, embarrassed and blushing couple in tow. Introductions all around. As the judge reviewed the paperwork, he told us that Hurley had issued over 500 marriage licenses that were never used within an allowable 90 days, and one of them was ours, issued last spring. We fessed up. We had applied soon after I was diagnosed, but we'd never used the license because we couldn't agree on the who, what, where, or when back then. Now we were ready and applied for a new license. Judge Parker had thought through all the details. He suggested holding the ceremony in front of the tall Christmas tree, and he proceeded to don his black judge's robes. He shuffled through his pile of papers and pulled up his typewritten, well-used marriage text. Halfway through the ceremony, Glenn realized we had no rings. The judge chuckled and assured him we didn't need rings to marry. We could take care of that later. Rings were the least important part. When he declared us married under the laws of New York State, the place rocked with applause. People ask, has marriage changed anything? Well, yes. Glenn calls me wife periodically. And the tax man is a bit poorer. But it may take another 18 years until we invest in rings. Happy Valentine's Day, Lee.
Oh, we had a good time when she read that in group. We were so surprised. And we tried to give her a party, but. So, I'm going to read, first of all, this is really a family. It's a pretty great group. I'm going to read about my favorite aunt, Aunt Tress, and her marriage. And it will also cover her sons, my cousin Jimmy, my favorite cousin, died last month. And this does not mention that, you know, at the end of it, he was running many hospitals and had 6 kids, one with leukemia. It's just focusing on his mom and their marriage. Maple Street. The roof and toilet leaked. The 3-room house on Maple Street had no insulation. Aunt Tress, married to the king of cheap, climbed down wobbly basement stairs to shovel coal into the furnace. She carried smelly accumulations from bathroom trash to rusting pails out in the drive for 40 years. Uncle John drank and roughed her up, made their boy Bobby watch. My uncle left the railroad, spent his pension at the track, and oblivious to his wife's blackened hands stoking coal down in the cellar, kept his winnings secret from my aunt. To help and buy a bike to share, Bobby and his little brother Jim mowed lawns and shoveled snow, tossed the Post Star onto porches. With the kids who lived next door, Jim played rummy by the radio. Once, when my uncle monopolized a call-in show, something he did a lot, the announcer cut my uncle short. Jim blushed, tied his sneakers tight. Seeing this, Aunt Tress brought out maple walnut cake. She gave out chiclets, like communion, smoothed Jim's hair. My cousins grew. The house on Maple shrank. The boys were men. My Uncle John gargantuan when in '58, bearing graduation gifts. One shining day in June, I danced across the porch and turned the doorknob as my uncle was about to throw Jim's cake. That year, while an orderly at Glens Falls Hospital, Jim applied for nursing school. Thinking not good enough, and like his father said, not smart enough, he packed his bags to leave, afraid of freshman year. Shirts and underwear he'd earned at all-night jobs sailed across the room to, "No son of mine will steal. Where's my aftershave? My wind-up clock? Christ Jesus, Tress, my pen." Dad, Jim cried. I bought that clock, that aftershave, the pen. 6 years later, Jim got a notice in the mail for Vietnam. He bit his cheek, rocked his child, hugged his pregnant wife, Shug, and wept. Then, while Jim dispensed morphine and sulfa, Aunt Tress made novenas. She glory bead and Hail Mary'd, bargained on her beads. Years passed when, glad he was safe, she'd dust dressers, the TV, and walnut buffet, and say prayers of thanks. Rearranging photos and frames, she'd touch the army cap shading Bob's face, and remember how Jim chased his daughter the day he shipped out, crawling past chairs as they played. Uncle John continued to mistreat and bully my aunt. Wanting their mother away from their father, Bob and Jim begged, "Leave him, we'll get you a place." Aunt Tress, dazed, took down her suitcase, stayed with us for a bit. Then, thinking of French-speaking nuns, their warnings and coaching, and her wedding at age 17, Aunt Tress consulted a priest. She returned to my uncle. In the 80s, seizures and strokes plagued my aunt. Uncle John called neighbors, phoned friends. Bereft, afraid, he followed advice. He opened cans, cooked meals, did the wash. My uncle changed, bathed, and fed my ill aunt. The wife he'd neglected, he now called his bride. Once hurtful and helpful, still not easy or artful, he nursed and cajoled. He ordered, demanded, belittled, and badgered both worried sons, paying bills. Aunt Tress, brain aching with tumors, got the son who could promise to promise. "Don't give up on your father," she said. Jim rented an inn for the 50th Golden Year Fest. Toasting his folks, he gave long, loving thanks to his mother, short, careful thanks to his dad. I caressed, hugged, and kissed my Aunt Tress. Dancing with Uncle, I looked above moles and his red carbuncular nose into eyes that pled for respect. He was glad, he said, I had come. I said, "Thanks for being in touch. Thanks for your gift." Inside a rose bouquet wedding card 2 months before, he had sent me an unsigned check. In Spindley's script it said, "Tressie can't speak or write these days, but she prays. We hope God graces your marriage. May it be long, and may it be lucky like ours."
This article that I'm reading is called From the Other Side, or as Craig entitled it, Deer and the Cat. I am what I am. I move gracefully on my 4 legs. I can sprint, I can jump. I can lie down in the snow and be warm. I muzzle my soft brown nose against another deer who turns her head towards me, stares, acknowledging that we are connected. I can see another 4-legged one, so softly it walks on furred paws. Its eyes look here and there, back and forth. It stops, looks at us resting comfortably in the snow. We look back at the furry black and white faced creature with wide open eyes, upraised ears, and short legs. We deer, nestled in our little tree grove at dusk by the creek, and the cat, looking for a safe and comfortable space, settle down together. The cat curled up on an old tree stump that protruded just enough from the ground. In the morning, a deer raised its head, twitched its ears. The cat stared into the woods from its tree stump. The deer stretches its neck to the ground and with its raspy tongue selects a few wisps of grass sticking up through the snow and pulls them into its mouth. It thoughtfully chews. The cat sits patiently, sinks its head into its soft paws. The silence is broken by the solitary chirp of a bird. The deer takes another mouthful of grass and chews more thoughtfully. The cat sits silently, then, with wide open eyes, stares hard at the deer for a few minutes. The deer looks at the cat, still curled on the tree stump. The cat stretches its back, arches its back, stretches, stands, hops down to the lightly covered ground, making little footprints in the snow as it walks towards the deer. After a few feet, the cat turns away from the deer to the right and heads up a little hill. Slowly the deer gets to its feet, hind legs first, then front legs, and follows the cat through the snow. At the top of the hill, stepping into a clearing, they pause for a moment and then, side by side, walk slowly onto the driveway leading up to a yellow house. As I opened the front door that early sunny morning when the snow was bright on the ground, I beheld a deer alongside of the deer, a black and white cat. They were walking side by side towards my front door. The cat looked a little bit hungry. "Hello," I said, observing the strange but comfortable pair. "Perhaps you would like a little food." "I happen to have some." "Just a minute. I'll bring something out." So started that day, different from the other days that week, with a bit of magic from the woods. Can people learn to trust and work with each other like the deer and the cat? This story is based on a true incident. Animals are symbolic in many cultures. Perhaps you're familiar with Ted Andrews' card deck dealing with animal symbolism. Anyway, it's very nice, but let me just lightly touch on symbolism of the deer and the cat as to follow up to this story. The deer animal is associated with high sensitivity and strong intuition, as well as the power to face challenges with grace. The deer spirit imparts the ability to be vigilant, move quickly, and trust your instincts. The cat is an ancient Celtic symbol, a guardian of the underworld with its ability to keep secrets. In ancient Rome, cats were sacred to Diana and guardian of the home. In Norse legends, the cat drew the chariot of Freyja, the fertility goddess, and was considered a blessing upon newborns and a good omen in the home. In Egypt, cats were depicted on the head of Bastet, the lunar goddess. May you all enjoy this evening. Thank you.
Intermission.
Okay, welcome back from the intermission. Thanks, folks. I guess it's really interesting for me here in the office where we normally do very objective things like talk about budgets and hear citizens' issues, but this is interesting. It borders on poetry reading, which we do allow here a little bit on certain days of the week, and this is even deeper. I guess what I would wonder from the group, if I know somebody will comment, but with the oncology support, it's so important and to me in that this cancer world that I've entered with the family issue I mentioned earlier, it really is a term that is striking to me. It affects everybody. That's why I think it's so important we get this out to the community and what we can do here locally. Just working with it, not only the ill person themselves, of course, they're the core and they're the object of our work, but the family around it is amazingly affected.
I just wanted to show you this picture, and there was an article in Chronograph, and this is a picture of our group, our memoir group, and it's in the, I think there's some extra copies back there. When Abby, our leader, begins a new session, she gives assignments, and we call them prompts. And one of the first ones that she gave us was to take any 10 years from your life and write about it in 3-word sentences, 2 pages. Yes. And having never done anything like that before in my life, I thought, I tried and I tried and I couldn't do it. So then the second one was write 5 love stories, 3-word sentences and 20 words each. And that's what we have here. The first story is called Collision, 1932. Burgundy convertible, top down, white sidewall tires, spoked wheels, rolling downhill, no brakes. First grade children with teacher crossing the street. Driver waving arms, honking. Teacher shouted, "Stop!" The man swerved car. He hit a tree. No one was injured. It was the end of the car and the beginning of romance. This is how my mother and father met. The second story I have here is called The Real Grease, 1954. This was the John Travolta movie, and most of you know about that. Okay. This is Grease, 1954. A fluorescent pink car. 1948 Ford Coupe, a hot rod. Levi's 101s, white t-shirt, Lucky Strikes, smoking. Navy blue leather jacket, blonde wavy hair, a DA, sleepy green eyes, and a trumpet. Note, the first time I saw my future husband. This one, same thing, only this one is called Love at First Sight, 1959. Mommy, stop! Fuzzy Bow Wow! Son climbed out of stroller. Mother caught him. Son screamed and cried. They hurried home. Santa brought Fuzzy Bow Wow. Note, my 2-year-old son and I were Christmas shopping. Fuzzy Bow Wow was a sheepskin stuffed dog. You notice I've written about my family. This one's about my dog. It's called Puppy Love. 1973. Fergus and Heather frolicked as puppies. Heather moved away. 2 years later, Heather returned. Young love blossomed. Twins were whelped. Note, Fergus and Heather were West Highland White Terriers. The end. Thank you very much.
Chocolate-covered cherries. My mother's father, who had died well before I was born, was what now would be called a developer. More than once he bought a piece of land on a city street, built a multiple dwelling, and carefully named those apartment buildings after one of his 3 daughters, incising their first name on the concrete lintel that adorned the exterior of the edifice, just above the wide glass and black wrought iron double doors at the lobby's entrance. Most often, though, he bought a large piece of land in the outskirts of the quickly growing metropolis of Jersey City, which he would then subdivide into lots and build a small group of similar 1 or 2 family houses, 1 to each lot. My mother told me that often she and her 5 other siblings, 3 older girls of which she was the middle child, and 3 younger boys, all ate breakfast on the floor plans he had left the night before on the kitchen table, prior to falling into bed exhausted from hunting for a way to cut corners to work more efficiently without lowering the sales value of the houses. When he almost finished selling the houses from the last project he had been working on, he had the habit of once again moving the entire family into the least finished of the houses in his newest subdivision. So my mom, along with her sisters and brothers, always lived in a state of construction. Evidently, the kids ranging in age from high school to grammar school were the most flexible. But my grandmother was getting rather fed up with all the years of upheaval and living in dust, always surrounded by different states of incomplete construction. With money always tight and so many mouths to feed, I can easily imagine what a toll the ongoing arguments about cash flow had been on my grandparents' relationship. One day, my grandmother stepped out of the back door of one of the incomplete homes they were living in with her heavy basket full of wet clothes to hang on the proverbial clothesline in the sun to dry. Either the basket blocked her view and she couldn't see her footing, or she just forgot that there was still no outside steps below the rear door, and she fell and broke her ankle. My grandfather, who was home at the time, got such an earful from her, which was for him the last straw. So he just walked out, and very soon my grandparents were divorced, and my grandma and the kids were living on the rare, very small stipend from my grandfather. Grandma had no choice but to go out and get a job to raise her brood all on her own. Her two oldest daughters were already working, and the youngest was in college to become a teacher. The two small boys were in grammar school, and the oldest boy by then in high school. Never one to give up, she took a job sewing in a local factory, and all the kids pitched in together, contributing from whatever jobs they could get, and even collected bottles and whatever else they could find to do their best to help make ends meet. But sometimes the ends never did meet, and though the family kept a watch against frozen pipes, often pickings were slim. Once in a great blue moon, on a really rare occasion when she could afford it, Grandma would stop on payday on her way home at the grocery store to buy 12 factory-made chocolate-covered cherries, 2 for each of her kids. That first night, each kid got 1 candy and 6 were put away for the next distribution. But when that day came, there would only be 5 chocolate-covered candies in the box. My youngest uncle, who was by this time approaching his teen years, had proof on his face of his worsening adolescent acne. So each time a candy was absconded with, he was automatically accused of having stolen the missing piece. This went on for years. For all the years they lived together, and the chocolates still arrived on those blue moon days at the house. Eventually, each of the siblings married and raised their own children, but as you can imagine, chocolate-covered cherries remained a special treat at family circle meetings, where once again my baby uncle claimed over and over that he had been wrongly accused, framed, but no one else fessed up to the crime, so they all laughed at him, and they ate this token of years of scarcity they had all somehow survived together. When Grandma died, the middle uncle, who had been the most demanding of the 6 children, and therefore the most spoiled, finally told everyone that on the rare occasion that Grandma could afford to buy the chocolate-covered cherries for her young ones, a day or 2 after everyone had their first allotted chocolate tidbit of lusciousness, he would, soon as the coast was clear, sneak into Grandma's secret hiding place and take an extra candy. And until this moment, he had never admitted it to anyone, especially not to Grandma, who, despite everyone else knowing the truth about him, thought he was a perfect angel. So it was out of my mom's deep-felt appreciation of something so small that had meant so much to her that my mom decided that all she ever wanted for my father for Valentine's Day were chocolate-covered cherries. Sadly, my father never did understand how easy it was to thrill her and make her happy. So each year for Valentine's Day, when he brought home a new kitchen tool or house cleaning gadget as a gift for her, she was once again sad that all her hints never got her what she really wanted, chocolate-covered cherries. When she was dying and staying with my husband and me on one of our outings to the local mall, I took her past the chocolatier shop and stopped in to buy her a bag of handmade chocolate-covered cherries, which she started to eat before the woman even weighed them. With her mouth full in her childish way, due to her now deteriorating mind, she reported that somehow they didn't taste as good as those her mom bought with her sweat and tears on those very rare blue moon paydays.
Hi, my name is Kathy, and I've been in the group about a year. I wrote this after one of our readings. It's called Rooted in Love. On a cold December afternoon, a group of us from our memoir group gathered for a reading at the Inquiring Mind bookstore in Saugerties, New York. We are a diverse group, but we all have something in common: cancer. As I entered the bookstore, admiring the old creaky wooden floors and the furniture comfortably placed for our reading, a sense of peace and calm encompassed my being. The counter in the back of the store displayed many treats to tempt the palate. The decor of the store was warm and cozy compared to the windy, bitter cold we had left outside. Carol was the first to read her piece on excavations, where she read of her radiation treatments in New York City, comparing her past life in the city when she taught fashion and design. My mind struck stark pictures of Carol promenading through the city streets, decked out in some newly designed eclectic outfit, my thoughts envisioning her fine sense of style. Bob's poem took us on yet another beautiful walk through nature as he spoke of birds in flight. Barbara's piece on her bladder was creatively descriptive and funny. I thought I'd pee my pants. Annie's poem, as all her poems, was exquisite. Craig's three wishes, eloquently speaking of his mom, paid tribute to her wishes in his memory. Suzanne's church ladies took us on another flight to her childhood, giving us a good laugh. Blaze's story on Throw Up sent chills through us, reminding of us where we've been and where we're going. Ruth's story about her dad brought tears to her eyes and our eyes as well. Then, to our delight and surprise, Roberta shows up ready to read. Her voice was loud and distinct, taking us on a nostalgic trip to the 70s and her battle with cancer. The look of delight on Abby's face tells us she truly enjoys her role as a dedicated mentor. I always wanted to join a writers group, but always felt intimidated. One of the best things about a writing group is listening to the many different voices, each one unique in style, like a finely tuned instrument in an orchestra. Each week, we are treated to a different symphony. Hopes, dreams, and memories come alive as each of us reads our stories. Some of us in the group have metastatic cancer, including myself. Before my diagnosis, I had been searching for my purpose in life. My life felt incomplete, like something was missing. Belonging to this group gives me that added purpose, not only with our members, but through our readings, reaching out to others, bringing laughter, hope, and a sense of feeling connected. Like strands of yarn, our lives and stories weave together, sometimes slightly tangled and frayed, but mostly knitted and rooted in love and caring as the family we have become.
Hi, my name is Miki. Actually, I realized the piece that I'm going to read is kind of like a bookend to Juliet's piece. It's not an either or. It's called Moving Back to New York City. I'm trying to spend time every day reviewing my papers, challenging myself to discard non-essentials. At first I met with great reluctance. Often I must remind myself of when I talked to Sheila about the arduous task of packing up to move again. She suggested that I take only what I need. And I realized then that really I don't need any of it. I can imagine easily leaving all this stuff I used to care about. Books, posters, plants, even most of my mermaid collection. It's not that hard to throw away the stacks of benefit explanations from my catastrophic major medical policy, and the notebooks I kept to monitor and follow up about payments I deserved. I recall my early years at the Board of Education, struggling with expenses as a single parent, and how Arnie G., generally not such a nice guy, nonetheless showed me clearly how I could put a little bit of salary into an IRA and come out with just about the same take-home pay, and explain the value of the additional insurance premium payments that I never really expected to put to use. And I remember the later kindness of Mike O., the union advocate, who interceded on my behalf whenever I asked for his help with insurance issues related to my illness. I don't have much trouble getting rid of the folders filled with pages of recipes torn from various health magazines. I know by now that I always cook the same way. Saute an onion or two with some garlic, then proceed. Besides, there's the internet if I want to get more creative. There are plenty of collectibles I'm very willing to part with. I've already given away the Barbies and the Fiesta plates, and I have no regrets. I know I'll have to prune what can fit on the walls in a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm okay with that. Still, it takes several efforts on different occasions to push through my resistance to letting go of other stuff. It's difficult at first to throw away old papers with discussion questions from my consciousness-raising groups, or yellowing booklets from the 70s about breastfeeding and natural childbirth. Then I remember I couldn't forget these parts of myself if I tried. I come across an entry in a California journal, March 12, 1976. I wrote about maybe having a soul that's black, about the racism there, more ugly than I ever imagined during the marches, between the lines of my movement rhetoric. I love finding these words from a younger me, and how grateful I am to have had this perspective for much of my life. How grateful I am that my grandson will grow up knowing and loving his brown cousin Buddy. We'll see early on that a person of color is simply a person. It's really hard to get rid of everything related to my professional life. For a little bit longer, I'll keep the notes that show the challenges I face trying to just help people, the criticisms that I cared too much, advocated too strongly for kids. There's some bitter taste in my mouth about all the crap I put up with. Hathaway Home for Children, Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, the New York City Board of Ed, Astor Children's Services, Ulster County Mental Health. It pleases me to read my articulate and professional responses to administrative harassment, and I'll keep some of these written exchanges for a bit longer. Eventually, I'll discard them all, except my copy of the letter to the hospital director from the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children. It cites the delay in telling them about the 5-year-old girl brought to the ER with gonorrhea, and it reprimands the pediatrician who ordered me to not file a report because the poor girl could have caught it from using a public toilet seat. I did not obey that department chair, never did lose my personal integrity, and that letter is my vindication for all the times I had to do what I knew was right, no matter what. I'll keep my college and graduate school transcripts and renew my licenses and malpractice insurance regularly. But I'm done with having to continue to work. I'm done with having to continue in stressful work environments, but I hope to again be helping people in a professional capacity before too long. I am walking softly into the ending chapters, with plenty of story left to reveal. I'll bring some earrings, the mounted photo of my grandbaby just born, his pose similar to the face of the Buddha. I'll bring plenty of yarn, my poems and memoir writings, the Chagall Flying Blue Mermaid poster, and probably most of my pots and pans. They'll be swimming in square dance wherever I'm living, spoken word readings and mahjong games, and justice work needing to be done. I'll have my people who know where I've come from, who don't want to argue about personal truth. Full palette skin tone on Metro Faces. World Concert of Heart Song. I hear Yaya, Uma, Gaga, Granny, Nai, Bibi, Big Mama, Gamma. Thank you.
This is called A Love Letter to My Losses. It began living from loss to loss nearly 7 years ago. Mom, one operation and many procedures. 3.5 months of weekly commutes, hours in hospitals, battles with doctors, nurses, and aides. The exhausting battle to hold on to her life, losing that battle in the end anyway. That was huge that spring. Life changed inexorably. By the end of that summer, I lost my Doc. No small thing, the loss of a horse. So heartbreakingly sad. He had been my rescue, spent 7 years healing his hurts, body and spirit. My sweet equine friend, I made you a promise. Then I offered the gift of you to another, to share your spirit. She did not understand the gift. She did not understand you. Months passed. I brought you home, a shadow of what you had been. You stayed long enough for me to apologize and to say goodbye. Then, 1 year later, just 1 year later, Dad was gone. Dad, that indomitable spirit. Cancer was the diagnosis. A heart attack was the cause. Shocking to be orphaned, motherless, parentless. Then cancer takes Melissa. It may seem like it should have been small. We had never met face to face, had never hugged. But it was a first, the first loss of a virtual friend. We shared more than you might have guessed, and would now never get a chance to hug. A group of 4, now just 3. Cody is old. He has trouble walking, can no longer run. The dog we rescued young, matted and covered in fleas, had become family. Big, beautiful, sweet, silly collie has a tumor in his belly. Too big to remove, we leave it alone until he tells us it is time. Jackson's last day of high school, memorable for the wrong reasons. October 2012. It feels so fresh. Not so long ago. Harbinger? Timed? Perhaps. Tony, the fulfillment of a dream. A dream dreamed for 38 years. A dream lived for 11. Tony. Tradewinds Tony, I called him that. The top of every birthday and Christmas list. Tony, my first horse. So many will never understand. You completed my life. You were everything that this little girl dreamed of. You inspired this woman to great things. I had you for 11 years, the most selfish gift I had ever given myself. And then I had to offer you a gift back. I had to offer you relief from pain. I had to lose you, to steep myself in the pain of your loss. I cried long. This loss, the accumulation of all the others, sign and signifier of how my life was being lived, from loss to loss, until I almost lost myself, until I was told I had cancer, until they operated on me to save my life, until they poisoned me to save my life. And then, life was suddenly not about loss at all. Life was suddenly about all of the moments. I now understood. We are meant to feel all of them fully, the losses, and every incredible moment in between them.
Just wanted to say a word about the oncology support program. It sponsors the memoir group. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 22 years ago, and there was nothing in the area in the Hudson Valley to help people with cancer. And I was hired to run a breast cancer support group at what was then Benedictine Hospital. And that has become the Oncology Support Program, which is about to celebrate its 20th anniversary and bring so many wonderful, wonderful opportunities to cancer patients and their families. So please pick up our newsletter if you haven't already seen it. And so I'm very, very proud to have been able to do that. One of the first prompts we got from Abby in the memoir group, as someone has said, to write sentences of a certain length. And the assignment was 20 words. And I started writing short love stories but they all turned out to be 23 words. So I broke the rules, but every sentence in these little love stories is 23 words. 10-year-old Brandon knocked at the door tonight, coming to give 10-year-old Alexandra a rose because her father had died. Over the past 20 years, so many wonderful women have blessed me with their friendship and support, thanks to our breast cancer connection. You can count as I go. I could never figure out why Marvin Alper rejected me when we were in Mr. Greenberg's 6th grade class at PS 161. When I sit at the Maverick concerts listening to chamber music, the sweet air blending with joyful strains, I feel what love is. I still remember when Antonio, the Chilean writer who called me Jimena the Poetry Eater, made passionate love to me in East Hampton. My beautiful, talented goddaughter Regina will be attending Bard College this fall, and I know that Luana would be so proud of her. When Robert first met me, he said that's when he knew what a beautiful woman his wife would become when she was older. I remember the tender way my mother's body felt when I washed her in the shower during the days that she was dying. I thought I loved a man who seemed to care about me, but I discovered that years of wounding had locked his heart. And a final love story about redemption. When I pledged to myself that I would never again steal, however tempting and however justified, that's when I started to love myself.
Hello. This piece is called A Blessing for Beshert. And for those of you who don't know what Beshert is, it's a Hebrew word meaning destiny. And it's often used in the context of love or relationships. For example, I think all of us in the memoir group would call our group Beshert. A couple I know named their daughter Beshert. And Beshert, being often used in love relationships, can mean meeting the one you were destined to be with or your soulmate. And that's what this is about. Blessing for Beshert. When twilight enters the window of your aloneness, and your heart aches for the tender touch of your beloved, may you be blessed to remain open and receptive. May the tears glisten on your cheeks as diamonds beckoning to your Beshert. When the sun rises and shimmering golden rays illuminate your pillow, may you glimpse your Beshert in the light. May your heart fill with yearning and yes. When you are praying for your Beshert to enter your life, or the life of someone you love, perhaps a son or a daughter, a single parent, a sibling or friend, someone whose life is as dear to you as your own, someone whose very happiness is also yours. May you sing that longing with a melody so haunting and powerful that the notes go directly to the source, always listening, the one whose breath will carry your song to the farthest reaches of the universe. May your friends and family encourage and support you in your search, and may you support others in theirs. May you follow up intention with whatever action may be needed to open the gates to your Beshert. May you take courage. Courage to go to the places that scare you, to show up, stand up, speak up, sing out, put on your dancing shoes, wear a funky hat, be noticed, take notice. May you be willing to seek actively, to risk, to receive, to give, to play, to pray, and never, never, never give up. And while you are waiting, While you are waiting, may you be blessed to become your own Beshert. May you know in your heart of hearts that loving yourself is your destiny, your birthright gift, no less than the birthright gifts of loving and being loved by another. May you be blessed to know that your Beshert's boat looks just like yours, each with a cargo of divine spark, white sails filled with the wind of faith, gleaming in the moonlight, searching, sailing on the same river of hope. And when you meet, may you behold one another and see the face of God in each other's eyes. May you not pass as ships in the night, but dare to leap into each other's arms, carrying one another along the currents of love. This year, may life unfolding bless you with the embrace of your Beshert.
Hi, I'm Brent Kowalczyk, Deputy Mayor here in the Village of Red Hook. And on a personal note, cancer has taught myself and my wife and my family some very important lessons. And through all the struggle and pain of going through surgery and recovery and chemo, we discovered a lot about ourselves and about our community. We have now the courage to try new things that we've never done before. Juliet writing, opening up the gallery, myself involved with teaching. We're choosing those things that are most important in our lives and really making a big difference. And two things that I really want to call attention to you all about that is very important to us. One is our community. And we both give a lot to the community, but it's given us so much more. Second is this group. The support is incredible. Juliet looks forward to going to the group, and I look forward to her coming home because the joy she gets from being with the group is incredible. So again, I want to thank you all for reading your memoirs and come back to Red Hook. God bless you.
Thank you.
That's the end of the evening in terms of readers. There's still refreshments, so take what you want. Thank you all for coming. Just a very quick reminder. In the program, you'll see two very important citations. The number of the Cancer Support House is 845-339-2071. If you ever need their services or know anyone who does, keep that number in mind. Our website for our book and our group is www.holdingonlettinggomemoir, all one word, .org. And there are plenty of links there to see us reading in other venues, and quite a bit of